of the Church has been written by Minnie Odell and Irene Mickelson and Jean Nystrom. Now, what I'm talking about is going to be the history, as I see it, from the time I was a little guy sitting down at Sunday school until the present. My first recollections of church is Sunday school. In the church basement, sitting by the wood-burning furnace with Naomi Birkeland Lundmark teaching the youngest class. There was an older group preparing for confirmation and advanced schooling. This was Sunday afternoon as the church was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The pastor had Cumberland, Pearlie, and McKinley as charges. Attendance was full house every Sunday. Israel Riesberg lived next to the Trinity Church across the highway and was janitor and firekeeper. Also, always sat in the smallest pew at the back of the church. I can still see him sitting there. Tom Odell was the greeter as well as Ellery Garrett. Anna Holmbecken played the piano. The organ was too difficult for her to operate. She was a wonderful piano player. The children only heard the minister when Sunday school was not in session. When Ole and Olivia Holmbeck celebrated their 55th wedding anniversary, and Reverend Winslow Wilson was his good bar party at the same time at the Holmbeck home. All of the McKinley was there, everybody. Well, Lutherans were there, Methodists were there, everyone. It must have been it was in late June, because I remember there were strawberries on the menu. And the potluck ran low, there were so many people, a hat was passed, which happens a lot at Methodist organizations. And Roy Colonel went down to his store and replenished the meal. It was a grand occasion, a beautiful, warm, and sunny day to remember. The kids played games, the men sat outside under the shade trees, and most of the women were inside catching up on local news and visiting with those from out of town that came home for the picnic. The men of the church took care of all the maintenance and the heating. Wood was used to heat the church at the time. And it was cut, split, hauled, and piled in one day. Usually we cut it over on Berglund's place and brought it up here. The women had a wonderful meal for us afterwards. So everybody came just for that. But there was a lot of work, you can imagine, and the wood was always done a year ahead of time so that it would be dry enough to burn the following year. Then there was the furnace. About the 1960s, we quit making wood, and there was a building built on the end for a new oil furnace. And that was a big move for us. The men had a dartball team league with area churches. Every other week we'd be at home, and then the next week we'd be traveling. Lunch was served by 2 of the men every time that we had a meeting. Of course, the wives and the mothers done the making of the cakes and the sandwiches, but it was for men only. The women weren't invited, the girls couldn't come. This was just the men. A lot of the fathers and sons were on the team together. It was a great fellowship, and we had a lot of fun. More men of the congregation also shingled the roof in 1957, and no one was willing to tackle the tower, to take a look at it. But there was one person, Art Bowen, came by and seen that we were having a predicament, and he offered to do the job. He was the son of Velma and Marion Bowen, who were lifelong members of this church, and we appreciated it very much. The well was drilled for the church, and a restroom was put in sometime in the early 90s. and the septic system was also installed. A new gas furnace and air conditioning in the 90s. It sure made it easier for the traditional Paul suppers when there was water in the sewer and air conditioning. And now we no longer have the Paul suppers, but it's in very able hands with the Lutherans, and they're doing a wonderful job. The new steel roof was installed by Amish crew workers, and the vinyl siding and insulation was put on about 2004. The windows were all tightened up with permanent storms on the outside. Now we have air conditioning to do that. The big highlight, another highlight of the church, was the yearly August picnic at Bud and Betty Sager's place. Bud gave rides in his golf course to the kids and the older people who wanted to go. He has 60 acres of beautiful trails, and we always enjoy it so much. I've remembered and knew at least 10 pastors since 1941, and each brought their own strength and individual talents to the church, making us more aware of our mission of service. That's our story, history-rich in caring, service, and tradition. May our church continue to serve the community for another 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.